Everyone, I hope you're having an amazing day. So today we're going to talk about how to schedule a batch class, right? So now you might wonder, why do we need a batchable interface, right? First of all, let me give you some advantage of the batchable interface. So if you have a complex running task, right, which involve processing of thousands of records, right, and then you need a batch class, right, because you can't use it using a normal operation because it will hit the so-called limit or governor limit, right? So you can implement a class which implements, database.batchable, that as you can see on my screen, right? And then it comprises of three methods like start, execute, and finish, right? So as I said, it can process up to, it can process up to 50 million records, and it can be scheduled to run at any particular time, right? The only drawback is that you can't run more than 5 concurrent batches at the time, right? So, if you wanted to troubleshoot, you have to use logs and other stuff to do that, right? So now you might wonder, right, why do we need to schedule a task, right? Why do we need to write a schedule class to schedule a batch, right? Let me give you a very simple example, right? Let's say you are a big organization, right? Let's say you are doing a Salesforce implementation for a big organization which process timesheets, right? And let's say they have 50,000 employees. And the requirement is something like this. Every end of week, right, depending upon the country you are, let's say, in normal Western societies or even in Asia, normally people start working for Monday and finish on Friday, right? A general case scenario, unlike in Israel where they start on Sunday and finish it on Thursday because they have Shabbat during Friday and Saturday. So right, so let's say for the sake of our discussion, we use the terminology end of week, right? So let's say during end of week, 50,000 employees submits the timesheet, right? And by the beginning of the week, the requirement of a company is that managers should approve. But for whatever reason, by end of the first day of the week, if the manager for whatever reason fails to approve the timesheet submitted by an employee or his or her resource, then it should go to his or her manager, right? So how to do that? So to do that, we need to create a scheduled task, and it runs in a batch, at certain point of time, and goes through all the timesheet. If it sits in the queue, move to the other guy, right? So that's one of the simple requirements. So in our case, it's a very simple batch. It's not doing anything fancy. So what we are doing is that we are querying all the accounts in the system, right? It's a dummy org, right? And then it will, then I'm using this account.process account method, which basically appends the account name with ACC. That's all it's doing. I know it doesn't seem like a good example. That's why I gave you a real life scenario example of timesheet. So also you notice that I have created this in a separate class because I wanted to use it as separation of concern because it helps you to test your class in an efficient manner. It's not a good practice to put every line of a code under execute. That's not a good programming practice. You need to separate it into separate class so that the testing become easier. And if you want to reuse it, you can reuse the functionality as well. Okay. All right. So this is a very basic class. We have a batch account, which implements database.batchable, right? And then we have this. So what we're going to do, we're going to create a scheduled task, which will call this batchable batch account, and then we'll schedule it using our default Salesforce scheduler, right? Okay, so the first thing first, as I always mention, you need to log into your org. Please do not try this in your customer sandbox org if you are learning for the first time, right? And please try it in your free org. A developer org is free to get, right? You just have to go to developer.salesforce.com and register for a free org, right? Nice and simple. Okay, and then you go here. When you log into your org, you get something like this, right? And then you go to this gearcog icon and go to developer console. By all means, if you are using Visual Studio Code for development, that's fine as well. Or if you're using Eclipse for development, or if you're using Sublime Text or whatever, right? So I'm explaining from from a developer console, but it doesn't mean that you can't use Visual Studio Code. The code still applies the same everywhere, right? Okay. All right. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna create a new class here, and so we're gonna call that class to let's say, okay, let's create it a new class here, and we're gonna call schedule account, right? So we're gonna call this a schedule account. And then we need to change it as global, right? And then we say implements, okay, we're gonna say implements, right? Schedulable, right? And did I spell it right? Schedulable, right? Okay, and then we're gonna add a method, global void execute, right? And then we have schedule. All right, okay. Context sc, right? You can put it whatever you want. Okay, let's say try. I often put stuff in the try catch, right? It's good to catch exception, well, just in case. It's a good programming practice, right? Okay. System dot, you can customize your own exception as well, right? So ex dot get message. Okay, so let me see if I can save this first, right, before we go ahead and do the other stuff. Okay, it sometimes takes a while. Okay, so our class looks fine and there is no compilation error, so it looks okay. So we need to call this specific method, right, under this schedulable account, because we're gonna try. So one thing I wanted to tell you that default way you can schedule, right? There is a default way. Default way. What I meant by that, you can schedule weekly or you can schedule monthly, right? You can schedule every day in a week, but the only thing is that you can only schedule once a day. That's the out of box functionality what Salesforce gives you, right? But if you wanted to change that to, let's say, 10 minutes every 10 minutes or every hour a day, you need to use a cron expression to customize it, right? I'm not going to talk about the cron expression today, right? So what we're going to do, we're going to rely on the default out-of-box Salesforce functionality to schedule once a day, right? Nice and easy, right? Just to make the demo very simple and short. Okay, so we're going to call this batch count here, right? And so we're going to say, so batch account, okay, BA equals to new batch account, right? Okay, then we're gonna do database, right? And we got a method under database execute batch. So you can specify the number of batch sizes, right? So what we're gonna do, so we're gonna do BA, and I'm gonna put it as 2, right? So okay. Well. Okay, all right, so we have to put the comma here, so it's colon here, sorry. Okay, so this works, and you're gonna put, so that's our schedule class, right? Now we need to schedule this. Now, how to schedule it's pretty straightforward. We're gonna jump into setup again, right? So nice and easy, right? So first we already have an existing batch account, as you can see. It's under start, I've written a query, so the query is returning a list of accounts, right? So I'm going to pass the list of accounts to this account dml.process account, as you can see this. So I'm actually looping through it and then using database.update. So I'm assuming that everything either pass or fail at the time, or if you want to not to fail or succeed at the time, you can always use this as false. So whatever succeeds, it will update. Whatever fails, it will skip, right? So that's pretty much it is, right? So read about the database.update, database.insert. So if you want partial commit, right? So that's why you need to put false. If you do not want partial commit, then keep it as such without false. It's by default is true. Okay, so that's done, and under finish, it's, you can, if you wanted to send out an email, you can do to a sysadmin, then you can do that as well, right? Cool. All right. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna jump into our setup here, right? And then we're gonna go to Apex class, and then go to Apex class here. And then we're gonna go to schedule Apex, right? And take the name of this boy here. I often put the same name of a class as the job name, right? And then I put weekly. I wanted to put it every day, right? And then so we're gonna go here, and then I'm gonna prefer time, right? As I said, you can, let's say I wanted to schedule at 2 a.m. every day, right? For whatever, you know. Okay, so you can change this to end date if you wanted to end this on 2022. This is a sandbox, right? So you might have to do a similar configuration on the production when you move over your code, right? So you can do this and then save, right? So you must enter an Apex class, the schedulable interface. That's exactly what I did. All right, let's see. Schedule account. Isn't schedulable? Let's see. Yeah, it's schedulable. Spelling is correct. And it's global. And it's global. Everything is global, right? Okay, and then I'll save it. Sometimes it takes time. Okay, schedule account. And then I'm gonna do, let's say, I'll search for it, right? Okay, we have it here. And then I'll save it. All right, that's saved. Okay, now we're gonna go to schedulable jobs, right? And then you have something scheduled, right? So it's gonna schedule to run at 2 a.m., right? So that's how you do schedule a class. You can, right? The thing to consider though, you can't call the future methods from a batch, right? So if you wanted to have the best of batchable and future method, then you need to use Queueable interface, right? So that's it. I've talked about the Queueable interface in one of the lectures, right? So please check out my video. I'll put a link in the description below in case if you're interested. All right, so that's all I wanted to cover today. So I hope you find some value out of it. If I'm not sure if you guys are using scheduled tasks, there might be a requirement where you may not think. Where you find that out-of-box scheduling implementation functionality of Salesforce is not good enough, you might have to customize using cron expression. Yeah, we do that as well. I've done that a lot of cron expression customization, right? So that I'll talk about in another time. So as I've mentioned, right, today discussion is just to demonstrate how to schedule it, right? All right, that's all I wanted to talk about it today. Thank you so much for your time. Greetings and adios from New Zealand.